What's up, everybody? It's Carpo here. I wanted to talk for a moment about Mormons and really just the interesting religious people that come to my door. It was, coincidentally enough, I was just, inside sitting on the couch reading this article about this audience or auditorium that was built in 1971 by the Vatican that was the Pope's speaking hall, and how it has this picture of Jesus coming out with this giant nuclear explosion under him, and how the whole thing looks like a snake from the inside and the outside, and this whole David Icke conspiracy thing that somebody mentioned something about it, and somehow it got to this article. And here I am reading about, reading these threads of people talking about church conspiracies, and then all of a sudden I see these two white shirts walk by my front window. I knew right away it was the Mormons. And, in the past, I may have blown them off or made them feel silly. I've had people who, religious folks try to make me feel stupid for not believing. So it's almost like an instant response to, say, oh God, here we go again. So anyway, I answer the door, and I'm relatively pleasant with these folks. And I wish I had a recorder sometimes. I just didn't have it on me. And I'm like, yeah, well, I'm not going to try to make them feel silly. I'm just going to make them feel welcome and comfortable. And this is two 18-year-old kids, and if you're not familiar with Mormons and their religion, they believe, not what they believe, but when they turn 18, they go on a mission. It's like their missionary journey, where they'll send out two boys together as a team, wearing slacks and white shirts and backpacks, and often bicycles too. And they're to take off and take buses and trains and whatnot out to other states, and basically try to spread the word of Jesus Christ through the Mormon eyes. So I found it the interesting conversations I've had in the past with them. I've had Mormons that were just begging to leave. Usually it's not me trying to close the door on them, it's them trying to walk off. And so the minute they came up, they asked me if I'd heard, talked to Mormons before, and I said, yeah. I said, they usually want to shut the door on, or, want to leave by the time I'm done talking to them. And the guys were really nice. One of those guys was Elder K, and the other guy was Elder Mason, K and Mason. And when you're 18, and that's when you do your missionary work. So anyhow, we got to talking, and, they asked me, what do you think is the single most important thing in your life? And I said, or how do you feel about family? And I said, they're the most important thing in my life, and that's all that matters. And I explained to them my whole philosophy on love, family, and connection, and they were like, yeah, we're right on the same page. And these guys just figured they had me. Like, here's a guy who has the same philosophies. He's going to believe this, And I was like, no, I'm familiar with Mormonism. And he's like, have you read the Bible? I was like, no, I have a copy of several different Bibles. I've got a commentary. I've got the Book of Mark. I have several different commentaries and Bibles. And finally they convinced me to take a full copy of it. And I was like, all right, I'll do it just for you. But honestly, I'm just saying I would rather save the paper for someone who would actually read it, because it's not that I don't, it's not that I'm not open. It's just that I've studied religion enough. I was like, guys, I've been studying religion since I was your age, since I was 15, and I'm just fascinated with why people believe what they do. And in the past, I would say, people shouldn't believe in these things, but now I understand that it's something that brings people closer to understanding. If you have to label God, if you have to name God, then fine, so be it. I told them that I have no problem with people believing what they want. The problem is when they reflect that back on me and make me feel lesser. And they said, well, how do you, I explained to them how I feel about family, and they said, well, wouldn't you want to spend eternity with your family, afterwards in a great place? And I said, to be honest with you, well, first I said, look, I've been through a lot of crap in my life. What makes my moments awesome is the hardships I've had, and it's the ups and downs that make this life awesome and worth living. I said, I feel that too many people look to the afterlife for greatness and therefore miss this life. And I said, so regardless of what happens in the afterlife, so be it. If it's a great place, I'll say, hey, I did my best. I tried. Hope that's good enough. And I said, if it's not, and if it's not good enough, then, and they send me to hell, I said, well, so be it. At least I'll be there with 99.9% of the people that I know that are also good people. And that's really the point. You got to think through what hell might be. But I said, beyond that, it's not about hell or heaven. It's about the fact that what makes life worth living for me is the hardships and the good times. The last thing I want to do is sit in heaven for eternity with nothing and just, everything working out for me. I said, you'll understand one day that that is not, would make you a completely different, not even a person. It would change who you are, and eternity would change who you are. Even a decade changes who you are. And I said, you guys, in 20 years, once you've thought, through a lot of different philosophies, you'll see what I'm talking about. I'm not sitting here. I said, I respect that you have something you believe in, and I think that's awesome. And I said, for me, I don't really believe that Joseph Smith is my hero. I was like, there's religions that I've studied that are thousands of years old, some that go back so far that it's dizzying. And when we're talking about a religion that was created in the United States by a guy who claimed to decode these golden plates, and there's a whole. I said, I know more about your religion than you might realize, but I kind of hinted. I was like, I said, I have a problem with the fact that I said, don't you have an issue with the fact that you have to give 10% of all your money to the church for the rest of your life? Because that's what Mormons have to do. They'll get busted if they don't. The church will come after them. And I said, I look at that as kind of a pyramid scheme. And I said, and the churches have their giant marble, beautiful buildings. And meanwhile, a lot of people just live in poverty. But I said, the truth is, I see Mormons as actually family-wise living closest, to a good life. Because I have met a lot of Christians that claim to be Christian, but they abuse each other and they scream at each other and they don't live the lives that they claim to live. So to me, religion doesn't make a person any better. It doesn't make them a greater person just because they believe in something. So I have, he's like, well, if I give you this pamphlet, will you read it? And I was like, I promise I'll read that. I always read the pamphlets. So before I sat down here, I actually read the whole thing. And the one thing I learned about Mormonism that I was not aware of, and I found this fascinating, and I had to confirm this within the book. It says basically, even if you fuck up, you'll be able to choose again in the spiritual realm. And I was like, wait a minute. And then I found this little chart in here. So you've got your pre-earth life, and then your earth life, then your physical death, then your spirit world. Then you can choose to ask for forgiveness, and then you have resurrection and judgment, and go to one of these three worlds. So basically what the Mormons just told me is there's no need to ask for salvation in this world at all. I can just wait till I'm dead, and if I was wrong, I don't have to say, uh-oh, I can say, all right, I take, Jesus as my Father and Savior, whatever. It shouldn't be so trivial as for people to be tied up in a name like Jesus, a word, but that's what people need. And I'm not here to cast any insults on anyone as long as it's not returned. And I've had several religious debates with people over the years, and have very interesting, views on religion itself. I fell into my interest in Eastern mysticism and my interest in Western religions, and I stepped back and looked at everything, looked at the full circle of what the research of humans up to this point has to offer, and I found it very limited, and decided not to delude myself with anything. But I do believe that there's an underlying story there, that there is an energy, if you will, that the universe is conscious in its own way, and that I don't understand why we can't pick apart religion, why that is off limits, but that's starting to change, and now religion is actually feeling like they're attacked, and I find that pretty silly. Really, it's just that people are going a different direction. And there was this one part in here that just, I guess it doesn't matter, it's just fascinating, the stories people can make up, and believe, and then believe so strongly that they're willing to tell somebody else that they're an idiot, that they're a loser, they're a sinner, that they're going to hell. Even people that they've known, family, friends. Religion divides more than it brings together often, and that's a big problem. So I think if we look at it that way, as a do as you will kind of thing, instead of you have to believe this specific religion, I think what we should be looking at is, do people understand values and morals? Because that's really all religion is. It's trying to identify and define the few things that we know we have, which are the knowledge of right from wrong. And there are some things to be gained from religion, not the dogmatic part, but the understanding of who we are and where we come from, and that everyone is yearning for the same understanding. So I don't want to ramble too long on this. I just wanted to talk about Mormons. I have another video from a few years ago about the Jehovah's Witnesses that came to my door. I was just thinking about that. They haven't been back. I'm probably on their no list now, but I have fun with them because they're so hardcore. I had this one lady just get all upset at me. You know, this cute little old black lady. I mean, she was like a Rosa Parks looking lady. She was just, or what I would picture, you know, with a knit cap and a little sweater and everything. And she came up and started talking about, you know, Jehovah's Witness, whatever they talk about. And I was totally polite to her, totally kind, and we had a great conversation. But I started asking her, you know, well, where does it say this about Satan? And how do you know this for sure? Well, it says it in the Bible. And I'm like, well, where? And she couldn't identify it and got all upset at me, you know. And I'm like, it's not my fault that you're coming to my house claiming that this one book is the answer to all of life, and you don't even know the book well enough to quote from it. Because if I was religious, I would be obsessed with the Bible. If I thought that was the one true book, I would have read it 10 times, 20 times over by now. And I know Christians who have never even read their own fucking Bible, pardon my language, but you just can't say I have a religion and then not make any effort to understand it, and then insult others who don't believe in it. It's funny when you meet somebody who knows less about their own religion than you do. So anyhow, I'll talk to y'all later. Yeah, it's a weird world to live in. Talk to y'all later.